In the shop here today, we have this 2009 Ford Flex. It's got a check engine light, and the customer's complaining of a chuggle and a misfire. So we're going to run some diagnostics on this 2009 Ford Flex. Every technician across the country will probably, one of the first steps they'll do is to utilize the scan tool, and they'll go in and check for codes. As a technician, you want to separate yourself from other technicians as far as your diagnostics. I highly recommend that you do what I call an all-system scan. Sometimes you'll see a Toyota, Lexus, Scion, they'll call it a health check. Don't just be like a garden variety parts house and walk out with a global scan tool and check just codes, or I should say global or generic codes in the PCM. Check for codes in every module. Modules like to tell on each other. Not only that, it generates additional revenue for the shop in work in other areas such as brakes, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, steering, door modules. It goes on and on. Most vehicles have a minimum of 6 modules on the vehicle. With the MALA scan tool, there's no excuse. You will not believe how fast I can check all the modules on this 2009 Ford Flex. So the first thing we're going to do is the all system scan. So I click on diagnose. It's connecting Bluetooth to the vehicle communication interface. So we're going to go into the all system scan, what Molly calls the vehicle wide diagnostics. So you can see how quick it is. It's running through, checking all the modules on this 2009 Ford Flex. And very quickly, it's checked all 12 modules. As you can see, the only module that has trouble codes is we have a P1000, which means that the monitors have not been completed. We have a P0355, ignition coil primary. So now we're going into some special tests with our MALA scan tool. Let's first take a look at cylinder balance. We know we have a customer complaint of misfires, and we have a P0355 for ignition coil primary problem. Let's go ahead and start the engine. We can definitely see that cylinder number 5 is a lower cylinder in the cylinder balance test than the other cylinders. So let's go in, let's shut the engine off. Even though we know we have a diagnostic trouble code for cylinder P0355, primary ignition failure, and we know we have a miss in our special cylinder balance test, let's make sure we don't have any mechanical problems. The MALA allows us to do a special relative compression test. So we'll get set up for that. When you're doing the relative compression test, as it says on the MALA tool, you want to apply the accelerator to full throttle and then crank the engine. At full throttle and cranking RPM, the computer will turn off the injectors in what's known as a clear flood mode. So let's go ahead and crank the engine. Okay, so we know we have good compression. The mechanical condition of our Ford Flex is in good condition. We have a code P0355 for ignition coil. So I broke out the lab scope, the Snap-on Virus, and I'm going to current ramp the coil on cylinder number 5 where the misfire was occurring. Remember, we detected the misfire on the cylinder balance test in our MALA scan tool. So now we're going to use the lab scope and do some pinpoint testing of number 5 ignition coil primary. As you can see here, if we look at the ramp, the bottom here trace on our Virus, we have a vertical line going up. That's a dead giveaway of a defective shorted coil. two things we're seeing here. We've got the vertical line in the current ramp, which is a dead giveaway, and we have low firing voltage on our primary side of that coil. Definitely two things that are dead giveaway that we have a defective coil. We're able to look at the primary voltage pattern on this coil because this coil only has two wires. It's not a smart coil. The switching transistor is in the PCM, which gives us the ability to connect to the negative or the primary side of the coil to look at voltage and amperage. So we definitely have a defective coil. Let's replace that coil or move it to another cylinder, see if it moves, and see what a good coil looks like. So let's connect to a good coil and see what a good voltage pattern and current ramp pattern looks like. Okay, now we've connected to a known good coil. You can see the top trace, we have a good inductive kick. We see the transistor turn on, the dwell section, we have a good inductive kick, and look at our current ramp pattern, a nice smooth upward ramp indicating that we do not have any shorts in the coil. So the misfire, the trouble code was all caused from a defective number 5 ignition coil. So we have a successful repair of the 2009 Ford Flex. We replaced the coil, customer's happy, really great repair. I want to say my first experience with the Mala scan tool was very impressive. It's amazing how fast it can run through and check the codes in all the modules and how all the tests were operated. I'm really impressed with that tool, and I'm sure technicians will enjoy using it in further diagnosis.